"Don't touch me." The words cut through the silence of the mansion like a knife. A woman's voice, trembling, sharp, desperate. The kind of voice that makes you pause, makes you wonder, what happened here? His breath was heavy. Her hands shook. The room was dark, too dark. The only light came from the soft yellow glow of a bedside lamp, throwing shadows across the walls. Sheets tangled. Clothes scattered. A man on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. A woman clutching the blanket to her chest, her eyes wide with disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. Not like this. Hello family, welcome back. Before we continue, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive, what keeps hope alive. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love to hear from our global family. Now, let's go back to that room. The billionaire's mistake. The maid's nightmare. Damien Okafor, Lagos golden boy, the man who could buy out companies with a single phone call, had stumbled into the wrong room. A gala had ended downstairs hours ago. The champagne had flowed too freely. The betrayal he had discovered earlier that night still burned in his chest. His steps had been unsteady, his mind clouded. One wrong turn in the long corridors of his Victoria Island mansion. And here he was. And Maya Bello, quiet Maya, the maid no one noticed, had been in that room. Her small bed, her carefully folded clothes on the chair, her Bible on the nightstand. She wasn't meant to be seen, wasn't meant to be touched, especially not by a man like him. Yet, in a haze of grief and alcohol, one night of passion erupted, messy and confusing. Now daylight was creeping in through the curtains, pulling the truth into the open. Maya's chest rose and fell, shallow breaths betraying her panic. "Sir, you weren't supposed to be here," she whispered. Her voice cracked, her words barely holding together. Damien looked at her, his eyes red, his mind pounding with fragments of last night. He opened his mouth, but the words that came out were cruel, careless, heavy. "This never happened. Do you hear me? Never." The sentence hit her harder than any slap could. Shame rushed through her body like fire. She gripped the blanket tighter, as if it could shield her from the weight of his denial. Outside the half-open door, footsteps echoed faintly. Someone had passed by. Someone had seen the billionaire leave the maid's room that morning. But Damien didn't know that yet. He stood, buttoning his shirt with shaky hands. He avoided her eyes, avoided the trembling in her voice, avoided the truth of what he had done. Each button snapped shut like a door slamming in her face. Maya's tears slid silently down her cheeks. She didn't beg. She didn't argue. She simply sat there, her world collapsing around her, knowing that nothing in her life would ever be the same. Damien pulled the door open, ready to flee from the mistake that clawed at his chest. But in that moment, he caught one last look at her, the maid he thought was invisible. And what he saw in her eyes was not just pain. It was strength. A strength that would one day shake his empire. He walked out. She stayed. And the house swallowed the silence. The night of confusion had ended, but the story had only just begun. The mansion did not stay quiet for long. Big houses in Lagos never do. Walls may hold secrets, but people don't. By noon, the whispers had begun. A guard swore he saw the billionaire slip out of the maid's quarters at dawn. The cook repeated it while chopping peppers in the kitchen. The driver passed it along as he leaned against his car, waiting for orders. One night. One mistake. And already it was spreading like wildfire. Maya felt the weight of every glance. The sideways looks from other staff, the sudden hush when she walked into a room. She tried to hold her head high, but shame clung to her like sweat under the Nigerian sun. Damien, meanwhile, buried himself in work. Contracts. Calls. Meetings stacked back to back. If he drowned himself in business, maybe he could silence the echo of Maya's voice in his ears. "Sir, you weren't supposed to be here." But no matter how many deals he closed, her trembling words chased him. And then there was Vanessa Adeyemi. Beautiful, sharp-tongued Vanessa. A socialite who lived for gossip, with eyes that missed nothing. She noticed the stiffness in Damien's jaw whenever Maya entered the room. She noticed Maya's silence, her flushed cheeks, the way her hands shook as she carried a tray. Vanessa smirked. Secrets were power. And she loved power almost as much as she loved scandal. It wasn't long before she found the perfect ears for her poison, Amora Obi, Damien's glamorous fiancé. Amora, always flawless in lace and diamonds, always surrounded by cameras and praise. She adored the spotlight, and she adored Damien's wealth even more. What she did not adore was competition, especially from a maid. So when Vanessa leaned close and whispered, "Your Damien has been sneaking into the help's quarters," Amora froze. Her smile never faltered, but her eyes sharpened like glass. Meanwhile, Maya's world grew heavier. Days stretched into weeks, and she could no longer ignore the changes in her body. The nausea in the mornings. The strange fatigue. The quiet certainty building inside her like an unstoppable tide. One afternoon, standing alone in the staff bathroom, Maya stared at the small test in her trembling hands. 2 bold lines. Clear. Unforgiving. She was pregnant. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, her breath coming in short gasps. A billionaire's child. In her womb. The reality pressed down on her until she could hardly breathe. That evening, she sat on her narrow bed, the same bed where her world had been turned upside down. She touched her stomach gently, whispering through tears, "I'll protect you. No matter what." But protection would not be easy. Not in a house where walls had ears, where Vanessa had already told Amora, and where Damien himself had declared the night never happened. Amora's fury burned in silence for now, hidden behind her flawless makeup and rehearsed smile. But she was planning. Waiting. Watching. And soon, very soon, the whole world would know. White right pointing backhand index if you haven't subscribed yet. Please do. Through these stories, we grow a community of strength, resilience, and hope. Leave a comment. Tell us where you're listening from. We love hearing your voices. The ballroom glittered that night. Chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks, the air thick with the perfume of Lagos elite. Politicians, business moguls, celebrities, everyone who mattered was there. Cameras flashed. Laughter echoed. Glasses clinked. It was supposed to be Damien Okafor's night of triumph. A fundraiser to cement his image as Lagos golden billionaire, the man who gave as much as he gained. His empire needed a win. Investors needed reassurance. Damien needed silence around his personal life. But silence was not what Amora Obi had planned. She stood beside him, radiant in gold lace, jewel wrapped like a crown, her smile sharp enough to cut. Her hand rested on his arm, but her grip was tight, controlling. Vanessa stood nearby, eyes glinting with satisfaction. The stage was set. And then, with a voice as smooth as silk but loud enough to carry, Amora said it. "Ladies and gentlemen, forgive me for interrupting tonight's celebration. But I cannot, in good conscience, pretend anymore." The room hushed. Forks froze in midair. Heads turned. Cameras pointed. Amora's smile widened. While we've all been praising Damien's generosity tonight, let us not forget he has also been generous in other ways. So generous, in fact, that he has left one of his maids with child. The words landed like gunfire. Gasps rippled across the hall. A man coughed. A woman dropped her glass. And then the whispers began, sharp, cutting, endless. Damien's face went pale. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The room tilted, his world collapsing in front of the very people who had once admired him. Maya stood frozen at the far end of the hall, tray in her trembling hands. Every eye turned toward her. Every whisper pointed at her. Is it her? The maid. Billionaire impregnate servant. Her chest tightened. The floor beneath her seemed to disappear. She wanted to run, to vanish, to be anywhere but here. But her legs refused to move. Damien turned, his eyes meeting hers across the ballroom. 1,000 thoughts crashed between them in that split second. Shame, anger, guilt, regret. And then came the cameras. Flashes exploding like fireworks. Headlines writing themselves in the air. Billionaires made scandal. Investors panicked instantly. Phones buzzed. Shares shifted. Men whispered threats. Amora's family, powerful and merciless, closed in. Their warning was clear: marry her, or watch your empire burn. And Maya, she couldn't take it anymore. Her hands shook so badly the tray fell with a crash, plates shattering across marble. Tears blurred her vision. She turned and ran, through the glittering crowd, past the gasps, past the whispers, out into the night. No money. No plan. Just a small bag and the tiny life growing inside her. She disappeared into the Lagos darkness, her heart pounding, her breath ragged. Behind her, Damien stood trapped in a spotlight of shame. His reputation, his business, his engagement, everything he had built was crumbling. And all he could think of was the look on Maya's face. The look of betrayal. The look of a woman destroyed in public. For weeks, Damien Okafor could not sleep. The scandal had torn through the newspapers, the blogs, the television screens. Billionaire impregnates maid screamed across headlines. Investors pulled out. Politicians distanced themselves. His so-called friends mocked him behind champagne glasses. But none of that haunted him more than the sonogram photo Maya had left behind. A small, grainy image. A life he had created. A life he had denied. A life carried by the woman he had humiliated. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face at that fundraiser, the tray slipping from her hands, the tears she tried to hold back, the way she ran. He had destroyed her. And yet, all he wanted was to find her. So, for the first time in years, Damien abandoned his pride. He left behind his tailored suits, his luxury cars, his mansion on Victoria Island. He began to search. The trail was cold at first. Lagos swallowed people easily. But one driver, one old market seller, one whispered name led him eastward. Until finally, weeks later, he found himself on a dusty road in Enugu. The city was quieter, slower. No flashing cameras, no gossiping elites. Just the smell of roasted corn by the roadside, children playing football with makeshift balls, women balancing baskets on their heads as they moved through the market. And there, hidden in plain sight, was Maya. She was at a small food joint, her aunt's place. Her hands busy serving plates of jollof rice and fried fish. Her headscarf neatly tied. And at her side, in a baby cot by the corner, was a child. Their child. Damien's breath caught. He stood frozen, the Lagos billionaire suddenly a stranger in his own land. The baby, small, chubby-cheeked, with wide, curious eyes, kicked his tiny legs. A boy. Chimaobi. Maya turned. Her eyes widened. For a moment, everything in her hand slipped. But then her face hardened. The softness he once knew was gone. She was no longer just the maid. She was a mother now. Why are you here? Her voice was calm, but every syllable carried the weight of broken trust. Damien swallowed. The words burned in his throat. I came to make it right. Maya, please, I want to be in his life. I want to be in your life. She shook her head slowly. It's too late, Damien. You denied me. You denied him. You watched me break in front of the world, and you turned away. Her words cut deeper than any scandal could. But Damien did not leave. He came back every day. He learned to carry Chimaobi on his back, clumsily tying the wrapper the way the village women showed him. He learned to pound yam with sweating arms until his palms ached. He learned to wash clothes in buckets, to sweep the dusty compound, to cook rice without burning it. The billionaire who once signed billion-naira contracts now stumbled with chores, his soft hands blistered. But slowly, painfully, he changed. At night, he sat outside with Maya's aunt, listening to old folk songs. During the day, he followed Maya to the joint, wiping tables, carrying plates. Customers laughed at first. See the billionaire washing plates like a boy. But Damien kept going. And little by little, Maya's hardened eyes began to soften again. Not with forgiveness. Not yet. But with something like recognition. That maybe, just maybe, this man was learning what it meant to love without pride. Months passed. The man who once walked marble floors now rose with the roosters in Enugu. The billionaire who once commanded boardrooms now carried water on his head, wobbling and laughing when children teased him. And the maid he once humiliated. She had grown into a woman he admired more than anyone else in his life. Maya Bello had seen him break. She had seen him stumble. She had seen him try, not with money, not with power, but with his hands, his sweat, his humility. Slowly, the walls around her heart began to crack. Chimobi grew. His first smile, his first steps, his first mama filled their little compound with joy. And every time Damien cradled his son, Maya saw something she hadn't seen before. A father, not just a man running from guilt. One rainy evening, Damien came to her with mud still on his shoes. He had been working at the food joint all day, serving plates, washing dishes. But his eyes held something fierce and steady. "Maya," he said, voice trembling, "I don't want to hide anymore. Not here, not in Lagos, not anywhere. You are not my mistake. You are my miracle. And Chimobi, he is my legacy." Maya's lips parted, but no words came. The world seemed to pause. Rain tapped softly on the tin roof above them. For a long moment, she only stared at him, this man who had shattered her, now begging to build her whole again. And then, she nodded. Just once. But it was enough. Weeks later, Damien brought Maya and Chimobi back to Lagos. But not as maid and child. As his family. The city buzzed with gossip. The maid returns. The billionaire's scandal. But Damien didn't flinch. He stood before the press, before his investors, before Amora and her sharp smile, and said it plainly. "Yes, I love her. Yes, she is the mother of my child. And yes, she is the woman I will marry." The shockwave tore through Lagos like thunder. Some mocked. Some cursed. But many, many, cheered. Because in a city full of lies and masks, here was a man telling the truth. Amora tried one last time to humiliate Maya, whispering about her past, her lowly job, her place. But Damien silenced her with a gesture. He took Maya's hand, kissed it in front of everyone, and said, "Her place is beside me." The crowd erupted. Later, at a small family gathering, nothing grand, nothing gilded, just food, laughter, and love, Damien knelt. No cameras, no champagne. Just him, Maya, Chimobi, and a circle of family. He held out a simple ring. "Not because I have to. Not because of guilt. But because I love you. Will you marry me?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. She thought of the night of confusion, the whispers, the betrayal. She thought of the shame, the long months of struggle, the child she bore in silence. And then she looked at the man kneeling before her, the man who had fallen and chosen to rise differently. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Damien." And just like that, what began as a mistake became a miracle. From the maid's room to the mansion. From shame to strength. From betrayal to love. Because sometimes, the wrong beginning is the only road to the right forever.